My name is Martinez. I'm a biology major with a minor in health. I didn't choose this project per se. I did a research-based project under my mentor who is focused on engineering, and it was a project that was focused on mechanical engineering, manufacturing engineering, and a bit of chemistry. So my project dealt with studying dispersion stability of nanolubricants, which is a relatively new field in the world of lubrication and mechanical engineering. It was studying how we could start replacing oil-based petroleum lubricants with vegetable oil-based lubricants. So my faculty mentor was introduced to me by a friend. Originally, I applied for ESAA in the summer of 2021, going into that new school year. And I was not the lead student, my good friend was. Unfortunately, we did not pass the first round and she didn't want to continue after that, but I had already formed a bond with my mentor and I was really gearing for it, even though it had nothing to do with my major at the time. So I applied again for that school year and I made it. So I didn't choose my mentor, he was introduced to me. So the discoveries that we made had to do with the dispersion stability, specifically UVV spectrophotometry. The dispersion performance analysis is basically a fancy way of saying a sedimentation analysis. You know, these nanolubricants can really hold up to the field against petroleum-based products. The only issue with these nanolubricants is that over time, the sediments that allow them to have tribological properties that can go against the petroleum competitors tend to settle down over time. It's quite literally sediments suspended in the oil that allow them to function as well as they can. So over time, as these sediments go down to the bottom of the oil, they become useless for their purposes. So my project was analyzing what could we possibly add to these lubricants to make them last longer in terms of shelf life and transportation and durability. So while I was researching, we discovered that the longest that these sediments, I'll call them additives for now, these additives into these sediments to make them last longer could only last a couple months at a time, whereas the oil-based competitors last years on the shelf. So as of right now, with my project, we discovered with oleic acid that these sediments could handle approximately 2 weeks, a week to 2 weeks. Which is a very short-term goal, but compared to the original sedimentation, which was over a couple of hours, it was a huge improvement. Technical background, well, I had none. I had to do a lot of research, independent research and guided research under my mentor because this was an engineering-based project. And at the time I had been a health major. I transitioned to biology because I came to love research from my ESAA project. But the technical background, I suppose, was a little bit of chemistry. I knew the basics of chemistry from high school. And so I applied everything that I knew. I started learning rapidly through research articles. I honestly believe that any research project can be done with an adequate enthusiasm and passion for your research. Go for it. If no one has any experience, you should honestly just go for it. I don't think there's anything you can lose. It's honestly such an incredible learning experience going for ESAA. There's so many resources at your disposal to help you, not only with ESAA themselves, but in choosing your mentor, making sure you choose the right mentor. They will help guide you into what you should be doing. Research is all about discoveries on yourself. So there is no set plan for you. You go at your own pace, you discover what you can discover, and even if you don't end up finding the results that you want, knowing what's wrong is a discovery in itself. Like I said right now previously, not knowing what works is a discovery in itself. Just mapping out what you did and why it was wrong and figuring out why it was wrong and what you can do better from that experience, that's a discovery in itself, and that is immensely helpful. I believe this research is necessary because in the coming times, there's been a huge push towards green energy. We should be focusing less on relying on fossil fuels and more on relying on what the earth can provide. Specifically, the oils that I used, I do believe they were corn oil and peanut oil, aren't exactly environmentally sustainable in the long term, but they were more sustainable than the current projection of using petroleum-based lubricants in the fields. So I believe the more research we funnel into using green energy, the broader the horizons are, and eventually we become self-sustainable without relying on fossil fuels in the near future. I do believe that current projections estimate until 2025, until our cutoff date. I know that some states have already taken measures to reduce petroleum oils in their states. I think up to 25 have signed into law that cars must go electric or stop using petroleum. How soon? Immediately. I don't think there's, best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. Second best time is tomorrow. I think we should start implementing these things as fast as possible. Participating in ESAA impacted my career so much, I changed my majors. Originally, I started off as a health major, and I'm super passionate for health. I wanted to be a public worker. I love reading about health. It's still my minor. I still love it. I don't regret being a health major. But I really like the rhythm that research provides me. And that sort of research would not be able to benefit me as a health major. I switched over to biology, mainly because human systems still very much interested me. And as much as I loved learning research into this engineering/chemistry project, I still wanted to go for a biological perspective. But I'm so glad I did ESAA because I spent hours in that lab going over these trials and getting them wrong and then trying to correct them. It was an eye-opening experience for me, and I discovered I really had that knack for research through ESAA. So my day-to-day experience, I'm from the Bronzeville campus and my research lab was in Edinburgh. So I often had to make 4-hour commutes there and back. So I couldn't afford to go every day, but my project did not detail me going every day. It was a time-sensitive project based weekly because these sedimentations needed time to settle down, and I just needed to record down the results. But of course, one mistake led to a whole week of error and starting another week of trials. My project had been estimated to end in the December of the year that I applied, and I ended up ending it around April of the next year, in time for my research symposiums and conferences, but definitely way behind schedule than I initially planned, which was fine. But my day-to-day going into that wasn't exactly day-to-day. It was a weekly basis, but it was still very structured. Advice going into ESAA, I think you should really be careful about who your mentor is. My mentor was very, very wonderful to me. He knew I knew nothing going into this project. It was a project that aligned with his research interests and a paper he was going to be publishing, and he wanted just an extra hands on that, which is why he recruited my friend and I. Eventually, I did become the lead student, and as the lead student, I had to do a lot of my own research, but a lot of the other research that I did had been guided under him. Anything I didn't understand, I would go to him and he would drop everything and help me every time that I needed help. So you really need to form at least like a close relationship with your mentor to the point where you can ask them anything and you can't be scared of asking them. I think that is the most important thing going into ESAA. I really enjoyed going into ESAA. I think it opened a lot of doors for me. I changed my major because I discovered my love for research. I'm co-authoring a paper and it's going to be published soon. I felt really hopeful for myself the first couple of weeks going into that lab. And I had been thinking to myself going into it, even if nothing comes of this project, I'm still really glad I did it. Everyone was very helpful. I never went without a correspondence, without getting back to me in 24 hours. Communication was incredibly efficient. The resources were always there at my fingertips. I just needed to reach out and someone would reach back out to me. I don't think there's anything to lose by going into ESAA as long as you put in the time and the effort, which isn't as draining as you think it would be as long as you choose what you're going to do and who's going to help you.